First, I'd like to thank you for attending this press conference and giving us the opportunity to conduct a thorough investigation. I'd like to say this will be the last press conference we hold in reference to the murder-suicide investigation from 13 Washington Street, Middletown. The only other information we anticipate being released after today will be the toxicology report, and we don't anticipate that information for another several weeks. Again, I will be providing some background information, and then I'll turn the podium over to the sheriff. On Saturday, April 18th at approximately 9:09 a.m., deputies responded to 13 Washington Street after a family member reported finding Christopher Allen Wood, age 34, Francie Bellotti Wood, age 33, and their 3 children, Chandler, age 5, Gavin, age 4, and Fiona, age 2, deceased inside their home. Initially, deputies made entry into the home to gather some preliminary information and then secured the home until a search warrant could be obtained. At approximately 2:35 p.m., criminal investigators and evidence technicians re-entered the home and confirmed the identities of the decedents and determined that Mr. Wood killed himself and the members of his family. At approximately 5:45 p.m., the victims were removed from the home and transported to the office of the Chief Medical Examiner, where autopsies were completed. So at this time, I'll turn the podium over to the sheriff.
Thank you. Good afternoon. First of all, I want to express to everyone that this has been a very tragic, heartbreaking, and somber weekend for the Bellotti family and the Wood families, the town of Middletown, Frederick County, and the entire Frederick County Sheriff's Office. On behalf of myself and this entire agency, I want to express my deepest sympathy to the Bellotti and the Wood families for the unbearable loss of their family and to the town of Middletown, who definitely lost a family that was loved by many. There are not enough words for me to stand here today to express my sincere appreciation for the response and the performance to duty of EMS responders, 911 call takers, local clergy members, local fire departments, the local investigator for the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, and for the many difficult duties performed by the men and women of the Frederick County Sheriff's Office. To this, I think the public owes a debt of gratitude. I'm going to present the new facts that we have at this point, and then I will field some questions. Late yesterday, the bodies were released back to the families. The Office of the Chief Medical Examiner has determined that the cause of death for Francie, Chandler, Gavin, and Fiona as gunshot wounds. The manner of death was ruled to be homicide. Francie was shot 2 times. Chandler was shot twice. Gavin was shot 3 times. And Fiona was shot 1 time. All shots were fired with a small caliber pistol into the head areas. The medical examiner also determined that the traumatic cut injuries and lacerations that we first talked about the day of the incident during the first press release were all post-mortem, which means after death. The cause of death of Christopher Wood is gunshot wound. The manner of death, suicide. Wood killed himself with a shotgun. Both the shotgun and the pistol are currently being traced by ATF to determine ownership. I'm going to lay out the timeline in as much as we have established at this point. Francie Bellotti Wood was last seen by a relative on Thursday, April the 16th at around 8:45 p.m. Our investigation indicates that the deaths of Francie and the 3 children, Chandler, Gavin, and Fiona, took place sometime during Thursday night into Friday morning. Christopher Wood was last seen by a babysitter on the morning of Friday, April the 17th, shortly around 9 a.m. It is believed that Mr. Wood died shortly after that. Our investigation thus far, which again it is continuing, that this is a long, arduous investigation. During the execution of the search warrant, a number of items were recovered and seized from the residence, to include a laptop and home computer, which now indicates that the Woods were having severe financial difficulties that stem from overextended mortgage and credit cards. Christopher Christopher Wood was also suffering from depression and anxiety and was prescribed antidepressant medications. But we certainly don't know at this point whether or not he was taking those medications. Again, as Corporal Bailey said, it's going to be several weeks before we know that. There were a total of 6 notes written by Mr. Wood. Four of those notes were addressed to his wife and each of his children, expressing his love and sorrow. One note was written to his mother, father, and sister, and was apologetic in nature for the acts he had already committed, and again expressing his love for the family and his sorrow. The 6th and final note can be best characterized as a suicide note, describing his day-to-day stresses, his day-to-day frustrations, their financial problems, and how he was going to raise his family. He also stated that he had tried a number of medications to control his depression, and he had in fact felt it had gotten worse over time. The Woods had been renting the property on Washington Street since August of 2008. We actually released the residents of the property back to the landlord Saturday afternoon, April the 18th. Prior to moving to Middletown, the family was living in West Virginia for a short period after relocating from Jacksonville, Florida. He had been transferred from Jacksonville with CSX, and at the time was an employee in good standing with CSX. Francie is well known by the Middletown community as an avid volunteer, and again, she was a well-loved person.